Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's from Canto 2, Chapter 4, and text 3 and 4. So without further ado, we'll start the class. Jairatha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jairatha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Givaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Givaradhari Yashodanandana Radhana Ranjana Yashodanandana Radhana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Giridhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Giridhari Yashodanandana Vrajadhana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajadhana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhasa Privajikacharya Astotara Satasishimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalila Vishnu Vishnupad Paramhasa Privajikacharya Astotara Satasishimada's Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Charya Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shami Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Hare Krishna Mahamanta Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories is the Lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glory to the Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nityananda. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddharthan. Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha. Narayana Namaskritta Naronchevam Narottamam. Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Vijirayat. Nashta Prayesva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavatu Tamasloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 3 and Text 4. Prapachachemam evatam yanmam visyata samata satama Vishnanubhava Shravane Shadadhano Mahamana Sanstam Vigyaya Sanyasam Kamatre Vajikam Chayat Vasudeve Bhagavati Atma Bhavam Didam Gata Pravaschachemam Evatam Yalmam Pischatha Satama Krishnanubhava Shravani Shraddhadhano Mahamana Sanstam Vigyaya Sanyasa Kamate Vajikam Chayat Vasudeve Bhagavati Atma Bhavam Didam Gata Prapachya Sevam Evatam Yanmam Prichasta Satamam Krishnanubhava Shravani Shashadhano Mahamanam Sanstam Vigyaya Sanyasam Karmate Vajikam Chayat Vasudeve Bhagavati Atma Bhavam Didam Gatam. Hare Krishna. Unmute yourself and 10 if you want to.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Aprachachema me vartha yanmam pruchata satam sattama Krishnanubhava Shravane Shraddha Krishnanubhava Shravane Shraddhama Mahamana Sanstha Vigyasannasya Karma Traivargikam Chayat Vasudeve Bhagavati Atma Vasudeva Bhagavati Atma Bhavam Drodhagatam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. Prapachche mame evartham yanmam prachaya sattamam Krishnanubhava Shravane Shraddhano Mahamanaha Samstham Vidnaya Sanyasya Karmatraivargikam Chayata Vasudeve Bhagavati Atma Bhavam Dridam Gataha. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Right. Word for word, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked, Cha also, Imam this, Eva exactly like, Atam purpose, Yat that, Mam unto me, Prichatha you are asking, Sattama, O great sages, Krishnanubhava, wrapped in thought of Krishna, Shravani, in hearing, Shradhathana, full of faith, Mahamana, the great soul, Sanstam, death, Vigyaya, being informed, Sannyasa, renouncing, Karma, fruitive activities, Tat Trivajikam, the three principles: religion, economic development, and sense gratification. Cha also, yet what it may be, Vasudeva, unto Lord Krishna, Bhagavati, the personality of Godhead, Atma Bhavam, attraction of love, Vedam, firmly fixed, Gata, achieved. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O great sages, the great soul Maharaj Pariksit, constantly wrapped in thought of Lord Krishna, knowing well of his imminent death, renounced all sorts of fruitive activities, namely acts of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, and thus fixed himself firmly in his natural love for Krishna and asked all these questions exactly as you're asking me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The three activities of religion, economic development, and sense gratification are generally attractive for conditioned souls struggling for existence in the material world. Such regulated activities prescribed in the Vedas are called the Karmakandiya conception of life, and householders are generally recommended to follow the rules just to enjoy material prosperity both in this life and in the next. Most people are attracted by such activities. Even in the activities of their modern godless civilization, people are more concerned with economic development and sense gratification without any religious sentiments. As the great emperor of the world, Maharaj Pariksit had to observe such regulations of the Vedic Karmakandiya section. But by his slight association with Shukadeva Goswami, he could perfectly understand that Lord Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, for whom he had a natural love since his birth, is everything. And thus he fixed his mind firmly upon him, renouncing all modes of Vedic Karmakandiya activities. This perfectional stage is attained by a jnani after many, many births. The jnanis, or the empiric philosophers endeavoring for liberation, are thousands of times better than the fruitive workers. And out of hundreds of thousands of such jnanis, one is liberated factually. And out of hundreds of thousands of such liberated persons, even one person is rarely found who can firmly fix his mind onto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, as declared by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 19. Maharaj Pariksit is specially qualified with the word Mahamana, which puts him on an equal level with the Mahatmas described in the Bhagavad Gita. In the later age, also, there have been many Mahatmas of this type, and they also give up all Karmakandiya conceptions of life, solely and wholly depending on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Lord Chaitanya, who is Lord Krishna himself, taught us in his Shastika 8, verse 8, Ashlishava Padaratam Pinashtimam Adashanama Mahatam Kurotuva Yatatava Vidaratulampato Matpananatasisa Evanaparaha. Lord Krishna, who is a lover of many devotees, women, may embrace this fully surrendered maidservant, or may trample me with his feet, or he may render me broken-hearted by not being present before me for a long duration of time. But still, he is nothing less than the absolute Lord of my heart. Srila Rupa Goswami spoke thus, Virachaya Mahidandam Dinabando Dayamiva Gatir Ihana Bhavata Kachid Anya Mahamashti Nipatatu Shata Kuti Nibharam Va Navamba Tad Api Kila Payuda Stuyate Chatakina. O Lord of the poor, do what you like with me. Give me either mercy or punishment. but in this world I have none to look to except your lordship. The Chataka bird always prays for the cloud, regardless of whether it showers rain or throws a thunderbolt. Srimadhavendra Puri, the grand spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya, took leave of all Kamakandiya obligations in the following words. Sandhya Vadana Bhadram Astu Bhavato Ho Snana Tubhyam Namo Ho Deva Pitarascha Tapana Vido Naham Shamyatam Tatra Kwapi Nishadiya Yadava Kolotamasya Kansa Dvisha Smaram Agham Arami Tat Alam Manyikim Anyina Ne. Oh, my evening prayer, all good unto you. Oh, my morning bath, I bid you goodbye. Oh, demigods and forefathers, please excuse me. I am unable to perform any more offerings for your pleasure. Now I have decided to free myself from all reactions to sins simply by remembering anywhere and everywhere the great descendant of the Jadu and the great enemy of Kamsa, Lord Krishna. I think that this is sufficient for me. So what is the use of further endeavors? Srila Madhavendra Puri says further, Mukdam mam nigadantu niti nipuna bhrantam muhul vedika. Malang bandava sanchaya daradiyam muktadara sodara. Onmatam dhanino viveka chatra kamam mahadambikam moktum lakshamate manag api mano govinda padaspriham. Let the sharp moralist accuse me of being illusion. I do not mind. Experts in Vedic activities may slander me as being misled. Friends and relatives may call me frustrated. My brothers may call me a fool. And wealthy Mammonites may point me out as mad. And the learned philosophers may assert that I am much too proud. Still, my mind does not budge an inch from the determination to serve the lotus feet of Govinda, though I be unable to do it. And also Prahlad Maharaj said, Dharmata kama itiyo bihitas trivarga ikshatrayi naya dhamo vivida cha bharata. Manyetat etat akilam nigamasya satyam swatma parnam swasuhrida paramasya pumsha. Religion, economic development, and sense gratification are celebrated as three means of attaining the path of salvation. Of these, Ikshatrayi, especially, that is, knowledge of self, knowledge of fruitive acts and logic, and also politics and economics, are different means of livelihood. All these are different subjects of Vedic education, and therefore I consider them temporary engagements. On the other hand, surrendering unto the Supreme Lord Vishnu is a factual gain in life, and I consider it the ultimate truth. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 6, Text 26. The whole matter is concluded in the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Text 41, as Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, or the absolute path of perfection. Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great Vaishnava scholar, defines this as Bhagavad Achana Rupeka Nishkama Kamabir Vishuddha Chita, accepting transcendental loving service to the Lord as the prime duty, free from fruitive reaction. So Maharaj Pariksit was perfectly right when he firmly accepted the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, renouncing all Kamakandiya conceptions of life. Om Gnati Virandasya Gyana Gana Shalakaya Chakshu Amritam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantika. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Simati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Shitanya. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. So the English translation again of the two texts together. O great sages, the great soul Maharaj Pariksit, constantly wrapped in thought of Lord Krishna, knowing well of his imminent death, renounced all sorts of fruitive activities, namely acts of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, and thus fixed himself firmly in his natural love for Krishna, and asked all these questions exactly as you're asking me. Hare Krishna. So, this text starts with, O great sages. Which sages? The sages as Naimisharanya. And it's been described that the great soul Maharaj Pariksit renounced all sorts of fruitive activities. So this is not the time that Maharaj Pariksit is actually speaking, or for that matter, even Shukadeva Goswami is speaking. This is Sutta Goswami that is addressing the sages and Naimisharanya about Maharaj Pariksit, what his consciousness was, and what he had done to prepare himself for death. So, all great sages, the great soul, Mahatma, Maharaj Pariksit, and speaking about Mahatmas, Srila Prabhupada has made a comment in one of his lectures that devotees are the ones that are Mahatmas. Although devotees that are conditioned souls are going through the process of purification, their connection with Krishna and their acceptance of Krishna makes them, or the two of them, make them Mahatmas. And literally, he said, you cannot be Mahatma through politics. And he was referring to Gandhi, especially. And he talked about Gandhi a little bit. He said Gandhi didn't really understand what Bhagavad Gita was about. So, Raghupati Raghava Rajaram, he was in fact saying that. But he was saying that to use for political gain, to get people to come to him. So he used Krishna, he used Ram consciousness, to be more specific, to get people closer to him in politics. So he never, and then I don't know, he's written, there's a Bhagavad Gita commentary by him, but you can't be a devotee of Krishna hearing that or reading that. That's why Srila Prabhupada wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, because the other Bhagavad Gitas were not turning people to Krishna. Even though in the text in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna establishes his position as the supreme, even talking about fools mocking him because he looks like another human being. They don't know the dominion that he has over all things, that all things come from him. He also says that, material and spiritual both. But Maharaj Pariksit was not lost in that at all. Maharaj Pariksit's birth involved seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the womb of his mother. So he was already connected with him before he came out of the womb. He was connected with Krishna already. All because of what Ashwatam tried to do, through a Brahmastra to try to kill him. He was the last one in the line of descendants from the Pandavas. He was the grandchild of Arjuna, direct child of Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu's father was Arjuna, through Subhadra. So Maharaj Pariksit was constantly wrapped in thought of Lord Krishna. Constantly wrapped in thought of Lord Krishna. This, we must understand, is what we're supposed to be about. But it is also explained that, and I'm going to stop sharing this point, it is also explained that even Maharaj Parikshit's time, he was also following the principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Religion, economic development, sense gratification, and ultimately from that, liberation. So Dharma especially helps in the liberation process. But it is explained in the scriptures that it only gets us as far as the impersonal aspect of the Lord. That's as far as that takes a person who is involved in that. So because the people were living life based on those three, Dharma, Artha, and Kama, religion, economic development, and sense gratification, that he had to rule and he was affected by that too. That's why Krishna made a particular situation occur in his life to have him get away from that, and also arranged for a spiritual master, Shiksha, Guru, a pure devotee of the Lord, resident of the spiritual world, Shukadeva Goswami, to meet him where he was at the banks of the Ganga. So when Krishna's pure devotee needs some sort of help, Krishna always arranges. And for us, the more or the closer we get to Krishna in faith, in understanding, and in cooperation, in service, but in cooperation, especially in service, the closer we will get to Krishna. And the more we feel these things that the pure devotees also feel in relating to Krishna. Krishna does not stop anyone from growing. It's not a situation of this person is, as Sri Prabhupada says, Krishna is like the sun. The sunshine is there for everybody. The only people who don't feel the effects of sunshine are those who get in the place, room, close the door, and throw the blinds over all windows so that the sun doesn't come in. They are the ones that stop Krishna from coming into their lives. It's not that Krishna doesn't want it. That's why it says in the scriptures that Krishna is equal to everyone. Samam charantam, equal to everyone. Equal to everyone. The sun rays is there for everywhere. If you connect with it, fine. If you don't connect with it, that's up to you. If you connect only partly to it, then you feel the effect of it only in a fraction, but not fully. We open up, there will be internal happiness. There will be happiness. Happiness is not found in material things, in the material world. As Chandramali Swami was saying, he just came directly, says, you can try to go find material things thinking that it will make you happy. You will not find happiness. You won't. That's not where it is. That's not where it is. And those who are rich and honest enough, they'll tell you, money can buy me whatever I want, but it cannot buy me happiness. And it certainly can't buy me love either. Those things are connected with the heart. Happiness is the nature of a heart. We're talking specifically about the soul. The soul is in the heart area. So when we say the heart, we actually mean the soul. The soul is Ananda, one of the qualities. What's Ananda? The highest happiness. So it is in there. And eternality and knowledge is also a quality of the soul. So real happiness comes when we feed the soul. When we feed the soul. We are trying by Srila Prabhupada's mercy to go back to the spiritual world. Krishna has sanctioned that Srila Prabhupada come do this work of waking us up so we can get back to the royal path of devotion in order to go back to Godhead. And that is the aim. In ISKCON, that's the aim. And the aim further is to get more people interested in going back home, at least start the journey to go back home. But if we ourselves decide, well, I've got so many material things to do, and we ourselves categorize the material things are so important that the spiritual activities are put on hold just to do the material things, then Krishna says, the extent to which we surrender, he rewards accordingly. So clearly, some people are getting more rewards for Krishna, from Krishna, than others are, because they are more surrendered to Krishna. Surrender also means cooperation. We are serving the Lord. Temple activities involves serving the Lord. Nobody else is being served but the Lord. But just like it is in the spiritual world, there's authority, there's categorization. Those things are there so that the service goes smoothly. There's always a coordinator. In the spiritual world, there are coordinators. Lalita, Devi is a coordinator, main coordinator. Vishaka Devi, coordinator. The 8 principal gopis that are close to Krishna, they are at a certain level higher than many other residents of the spiritual world. It's not like they brag about it. They don't. It's all about service and the arrangement that's been made. But as conditioned souls, sometimes we think that we want to do some things differently, or that we know better. Or some people think that it's been done this way for years, therefore it shouldn't be changed. That is the funniest thought. Excuse me to put it that way. Everything around us is changing, including our own physical bodies. But when it comes to something else, no. It should just stay the same. We've been doing it like this for a long time. Well, the good news is Krishna consciousness is never stagnant. It either goes up or it comes down in a person's life. And a person that's not open to change is not going to grow. There are some basic things that will be there. The mantra is not going to change. The Hare Krishna mantra is the same because it's a request to Radha and Krishna, prayer to them for them to allow us to serve them. Our life is service. That's why when we get initiated, we're called Das, for male or Dasi. It's all about being a servant. Well, there's a servant and there's a master. There's a servant, there has to be a master. And the servant serves the master. But when a servant wants to make decisions or do things on their own as they like, what kind of servant is that? The master says, the servant serves. And sometimes the master is not there for someone else is trained, knowing what to do, and that person has experience, and they also direct. Not for themselves, but just to make the process of serving Krishna go smoothly. That's all. That's why cooperation is necessary. So anyone that thinks that I'm going to do things my own way against what something else that's been established based on Srila Prabhupada's instructions, that person's intelligence has been stolen. Maya is very, very, very effective. And Maya comes in, she comes in like a little pin. You can't find it in the haystack, but it's there. We have to watch because if we're not careful, Maya will steal intelligence. And so the subtle body will be kind of funny because the subtle body is what? Mind, intelligence, and ego. Mind, intelligence, and ego. Real ego is to understand that you're the servant of the servant of a servant of a Lord's servants. That's real ego. So the mind is there, then the intelligence is there. And when Maya comes in and suggests something, no, it's not what's being done. What happens is we get put in illusion. Therefore, the intelligence that is supposed to be there is now covered. Maya covers our intelligence. The mind is still working, but Maya covers our intelligence. What does it cover it with? The false ego. So now the subtle body is mind, the same proportion of subtle body is mind. The intelligence is there, but you can't see it because it's not being used because pride has covered it. And the pride makes us think it has to be my way. What kind of servant does things their way? It doesn't even begin to make sense. It's the master that does things based on what he wants. Servants just follow what the master says. So if you're called Das and you're trying to be boss, then you're really not that. You're just Das in name only. Hmm? So Maharaj Pariksit understood that he was in fact from the line of the Pandavas, and that what he was doing in terms of Dharma, Artha, Kama, religion, and economic development, and sense gratification was for people who were not really that advanced. And it is said clearly that, yes, he was king, so he had to do that. Shiv Baba says the activities of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, they are attractive generally to conditioned souls who are struggling for existence in the material world. Now, what has happened now is not even religion, economic development, and sense gratification. Now we've come to Artha Kama, economic development and sense gratification. That's what most people are doing. They don't even go to church. How much religion now is in people? People see things happening around them. They see the hand of God. They don't even want to admit it is. Krishna is showing them in so many ways. But people have become so blind because, especially in this country, anything that needs to be done, somebody will invent a machine that does it. Therefore, people say, oh, it's solved. I just have to get the machine and I have to maintain it. That's all. And it will be done. And so people have been given the false sense of security. But there is no security here. Anybody that's supposed to be famous or popular or actor or whatever, you knew them some years ago. Go look at them now. Do they look the same? Of course not. They've gotten older. The body changes. Everything changes. So people who got a little wise, they made a song that says, everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Everyone must change. That's the way life is. The young become the old, and mysteries unfold because they're trying to be poetic. That's the way of time. That is the way of time. Krishna's time. Krishna says, in the end, things just get destroyed. And we know that things start and then they become old. Why do we buy new clothes? They get old. So Krishna's time. They say in that song that I just went through the lyrics, that's the way of time. But for the devotee, that's to say, Krishna says his time. So that's Krishna's way. In the material world, it's like that. But in the spiritual world, everything is permanent. No aging of anything. No getting spoiled. No replacement of anything. And the enjoyment increases and increases and increases and increases. But here in the material world, if we live a Karmakandya type life, as is described here, which is now being reduced to economic development and sense gratification only, not even religion, then we don't have much hope for a bright future. And that's why in one of the lectures, Srila Prabhupada says, he ended it, this is one that we listened to yesterday. He ended it by saying, they've been set up by their own pride. They've been set up by wanting power. And what do? They came up with atomic bombs, and they made so many, mass produced it. There's no weapon that's been made in the world that's never been used. So these ones will also be used. It doesn't matter how scared they are, because they know one person throws it, the entire situation is over. But it has also been explained that these bombs cannot ruin Mother Bhumi, the earth. They can't. They will wipe out humans, but they cannot wipe out the planet. And fixing the planet is going to be very, very easy for the demigods. In other words, we are the ones that have set ourselves in trouble to be wiped out. Therefore, it is important to submit to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like all of these wonderful, wonderful, pure personalities have said in their own prayers, as we heard quite a number of them, beginning from Lord Chaitanya. Aslisha Pararatam Pinashtimam Adashana Mamaham Tamputuva Itatatava Vidaratulampato Matpananatas to say Ivanaparaha. The 8th verse of the Shikshastika. And he says, I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so. Even if he tramples me with his foot or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me for a long duration of time, he is still my worshipable Lord unconditionally. Whatever the Lord does, I accept him as the absolute Lord of my heart. Rupa Goswami is saying, the Lord of the poor. Why did he put poor? Wealth sometimes turns the minds of people towards sense gratification, unless that person is a pure devotee. Like Maharaj Yudhishthira, like Maharaj Dasharatha, they didn't let so many, or Maharaj Pariksit for that matter, so much wealth steer them away from Krishna consciousness. But poor people, if you don't have that, then you feel the suffering more, so you turn to God more. So Rupa Goswami is saying, O Lord of the poor, do what you like with me. Give me either mercy or punishment, but in this world, I have none to look to except your lordship. So when devotees are going through challenges, especially physical challenges, we have to see it not as a situation where the Lord is being unfair to us, but we have to see it as a situation where, and this is the devotee thought now, we deserve more than what we really get. And if we want to take the trouble to learn how to contact or be in touch with our previous lives, we probably won't be able to live with ourselves when we realize the mistakes that we've done or the cruelty that we've done in previous lives. Case in point, Maharaj, what is it, the father of the Duryodhana, he was blind, Dhritarashtra. He was blind. But he was a king. Even before then, he was a prince. He was born a prince. Then he became king later. And he wished that he had eyesight, but he didn't. He asked Krishna, why was I born blind? All the things that my mother could have done, I'm understanding now that when Vyasadeva came, she closed her eyes, and I'm born blind. Krishna explained, since he had asked, 50 lifetimes before, you were a hunter, and you shot an arrow with fire at the tip of it, a flaming arrow, into, just for target practice, into a nest that had 100 birds and a mother bird in it. The nest caught fire. The 100 birds had not learned, little birds had not learned to fly. So the net caught fire, burned all of them, 100 of them. The mother escaped, managed to escape, but the heat of the flame messed up the mother's eyes. So the mother bird became blind from what you did. 50 lifetimes ago. And karma had unfolded in different things. So some things had happened in the Dhritarashtra's life that were positive. But he had to pay the price for killing 100 souls. So in that particular life, during Mahabharata's time, 5,000 years ago, he got in the situation where he had 100 offsprings too. And so that was time to pay for what he had done 50 lifetimes back. When devotees, when people come to the Krishna consciousness and they get initiated, much of what has been the negativity that they've done in the previous life gets wiped out. The positive karma, negative karma, all are gone. The slate is wiped clean, almost clean. There's a very, very small amount that we experience. And that's what we go through. We deserve more punishment than what we're getting. So everybody that's going through a challenge is two ways, either a small amount of token punishment or an experience which they would use later on. It may seem negative, but if they go through it and they stay with Krishna consciousness, then there will be another time that someone else that's going through a similar thing may be put in your life space, and you'll be able to not only explain what you did to get out of it, but you will also empathize more easily because you've been through it, so you know what it is like. Madhavendra Puri also, the grand spiritual master, as Srila Prabhupada says, of Lord Chaitanya, spiritual master of Lord Nityananda. And he says, looking at things that he does, he says, my evening prayer, all good unto you. Morning bath, I bid you goodbye. Demigods and forefathers, please excuse me because I'm not going to be able to perform offerings for your pleasure anymore. Why? He said, I have decided to free myself from all reactions to sins simply by remembering the great descendant of Jadu and the great enemy of Kamsa, that is Lord Krishna. And that is sufficient for me, he says. Madhavendra Puri. So if that's sufficient, what else do I need? What's the use of further endeavors? So all of these sadhus, pure devotees of the Lord, they are saying, whatever that I used to do, now that I'm connected with Krishna, they are of no use to me. I will remember Krishna and do what Krishna says to do. That is a message to us. So sense gratification and economic development are not what we should lead in this life. Economic development, Srila Prabhupada has already talked about that. What is supposed to happen will happen. There is destiny. It still plays a role in our lives. Srila Prabhupada explained by saying that we don't want trouble, but one way or the other, trouble comes. Something that is outside our control, we didn't cause it, but it comes. So if there's happiness and distress can come without being invited, then happiness will also come without being invited. What is said to happen will happen. Therefore, there is no need to endeavor for economic development. It does not mean you don't do anything. You don't do anything. That's laziness. Laziness is Maya. But you have to do things, and as Nectar of Instruction says, we shouldn't over endeavor. That's what's wrong. We have to struggle. The Prabhupada struggled to get here. We struggle to try to fulfill his spiritual master's order to spread Krishna consciousness in the West. There was endeavor. Nectar of Instruction says, don't over endeavor. So you do the best that you can, asking for guidance. You go to Srila Prabhupada if you're not initiated, or go to your spiritual master's picture if he's not with you and you are initiated, and put the prayer for the lotus feet. Help me to be a better devotee. First thing you should ask is always the spiritual. So Madhavendra Puri says, let the sharp moralist accuse me of being illusioned. I don't mind. Hmm? Experts in Vedic activities may slander me as being misled. Friends and relatives may call me frustrated. Brothers may call me a fool. Some Maimonides may point me out as mad. And learned philosophers may assert that I'm much too proud. But my mind is still not going to budge an inch from the determination, which is also a nectar of instruction, determination, enthusiasm, and patience, determination to serve the lotus feet of Govinda, even though I'm struggling to do it. In other words, I'm not doing it perfectly, but I will still keep this mind at the place of being determined to serve. So those of you who may have members in your family that don't take Krishna consciousness seriously or not involved in it at all, and got the nerve to even accuse you in one of these ways, being misled or frustrated or even foolish or mad, they are the ones that don't know what is what. Krishna says, fools deride me. They don't know that I am the controller of all that be and the source of all that be. Since we know that, whatever anybody should say, we ignore them if they're saying something negative or against Krishna consciousness and stay the course. Now, we also have mercy from Srila Prabhupada in terms of being able to chant not 64 rounds, but 16 rounds. If we set up our day in an organized way, in other words, everything is regimented. At this time, I do this. At this time, I do that, and so on. You will find anyone that does that, that they have some time left. They will find that there will be times when they'll see, what should I do in this time? If we start writing it down, this time I do this time, from waking time to going to sleep, the time that we go to sleep, we'll find that there is time, that sometimes we waste time. And if you want to put it down, my day, how it's supposed to go, you will not add wasting time to it. And here's the freedom to do your rounds. Everybody can do 16 rounds. People who aren't doing 16 rounds are deceiving themselves, letting Maya cause them to think that they cannot, when in fact they can. If you organize the time properly, writing it out so you can see, literally think, you can open, if you have a computer, go to Excel and put this categories from this time to this time, I do this. And it takes this much time. And in the end, add them up, including your sleep time, which should be 6 hours. The Papa says 6 hours, even though he says that sleeping too much is wasting time. But most bodies are rejuvenated after 6 hours, or maybe a little more, depending on what kind of body and what's given to you. What is given to you now, the challenges. We go to bed between 10 and 12, not after 12. Between 10 and 12, the body rejuvenates better the next day. If you're going to get up early, then go to sleep early. If you have to get up at 4 o'clock and you need 6 hours, then you should be sleeping 9:30, so that by 10, the body's actually resting. All of these have been said in different places. The physical body are the ones that we're using in this material world to do activities. Therefore, it should be dealt with, or it should be handled in a very, very healthy way. Very important. So we can use it to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It will break down at some point, but while we have the strength in it, do the best to serve. So, different, this Prahlad Maharaj, final point. Prahlad Maharaj says, religion, economic development, and sense gratification, they are celebrated as the three means of attaining the path of salvation. We are connected with Bhakti Yoga, devotional service to Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have to be, our main problem is not understanding how the false ego works. A person that is stubborn is in trouble. In my years of a few decades of being in Krishna consciousness, I have seen those who acted stubbornly. It's like, where are they now? I saw them in the 90s. Where are they now? Nothing good happened in their lives. Stubbornness is Maya. It is Maya. If you have that disease, you're in trouble. But it doesn't mean that you can't get out of that trouble. It takes humility to get out of Maya. It takes cooperation to get out of Maya. You can't come to Krishna consciousness and say, I'm a servant, but I'm going to do things my way. Servants don't do things their way. Servants follow directions. So as soon as you say, oh, this doesn't fit me, this doesn't, well, come up with all kinds of excuses. You have to go through inconvenience sometimes just to serve the Lord because it is our tests. Look what the Pandavas went through. We have to respect people who are younger than us. You don't say, oh, we're just older, therefore we can say anything we want to them. That's also Maya. Who spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to these sages and demigods and so on from all parts of the material energy that they came to hear? His name is Shukadev Goswami. How old was he? 16. They are older people. He was 16 and they were listening to him. You got a big ego, you're going to say, I'm going to listen to a 16-year-old. When Brahma and all those are here, I'm not going to listen to a 16-year-old. You probably get up and walk out if you have that kind of false ego. 16 years old, he was speaking. Who defeated Keshava Kashmiri? Nimai. How old was he? 16 years old. When Keshava Kashmiri came to Navadvip to defeat the scholars there, he met a 16-year-old and he got flattened. But it was a 16 teenager, mid-teens. Later on, Gada Saraswati had to tell her at night that thou was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, my dear Keshava Kashmir, that you were bragging to. And he just cut you down to size. As they say in American terms, dealt with your false ego. So many people who think, oh yes, Bhagavatam, this helps us so much, they would not have been at the banks of the Ganga looking at a nude 16-year-old speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. So the point we're making is inspect our own ways of doing things. Because sometimes we let the egos get too much of us. Steals, Maya Aparita Jnana steals our energy, steals our intelligence. And those who are surrendered to the Supreme Personality of God, they say anything, let anything happen to me. Srimati Radharani says same thing. A whole aspect of Krishna Prema. It's called Raga, the fourth level. There's 7 levels of development of Krishna Prema, intensification of Krishna Prema. He says, it doesn't matter what anybody says about me. Whatever you say, I'm serving Krishna, and it's not according to what the rules and regulations are. He says, whatever you criticize me to be, I will wear all your criticism like a garland around my neck, and I will still serve Krishna. All the pure devotees, up to the mother of devotion herself, they say, no matter what is happening to me, I surrender to Krishna. Surrender to Krishna means do what he says to do, what Guru says to do, what the temple authorities say to do, not the way you want, because you can't be a servant if you do things like that. That's not servant. That's fake. So let's learn the absolute part of perfection. Vyavasakyatmika buddhi. Let's learn that. Full surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, meaning the process of Krishna consciousness. Surrender to Krishna means you surrender to the process of Krishna consciousness. The body is for the Lord. The body is made by the Lord. The body is to be used to serve the Lord, not given excuses, because we won't get anywhere. So with that, we're going to end here. And thank you for listening to me, because obviously part of it was my soapbox too, you know what I mean. But we have such an opportunity to go back to Godhead. We shouldn't mess it up. You have to understand how Maya works, because he comes in saying something that feels like, oh, it's okay. You're dead, taking your intelligence away. So we have to be very careful so that we can protect our devotional keeper. Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so this is the time the Woodies can unmute yourselves, ask questions, share realizations, and other things that you like to talk about if you want to. Just unmute yourself. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance all Gashishra Prabhupada.
Accept my endorsement.
Very nice class. I wanted to ask a question about spiritual development. I mean, economic development. When you're speaking about economic development, how can one, I mean, you know, the fact of saying giving up is very sacrificing, you know, but how can one use it in Krishna's service? And you know, how can one integrate? I think that's the key word, you know, economic development in Krishna consciousness, like how practically. Hare Krishna.
To get involved in economic development in Krishna consciousness means, one, to make sure that there's enough to keep the family well cared for, just cared for properly. Otherwise, people are going to say, oh, because of Krishna consciousness, we are lacking this, we're lacking that, and so on. So this is the material world. That part of preparation to live a decent life has to be done. Now, if you want to go beyond that, remember, the Chinese says, Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundare. I do not want to accumulate wealth, nor do I want followers, or want beautiful persons of the opposite gender. He said all of that. When you go in Krishna consciousness, you begin to realize that economic development really isn't supposed to be at the top of our list. It's those who lust after money want strict economic development. If we want to go higher, we should definitely prepare ourselves so that we live, especially Grihastha life, we live a decent Grihastha life. That's important. If we don't do that, people will say we're just losers and they won't even come to ISKCON. Why do I want to be with poor people? Like, you know, they'll say that. And we ourselves won't even feel that we fit well into society. So that part of it. But we're talking about extra wealth. Lord Chaitanya says, I don't want to accumulate, not wealth to live on. Money to live on, that should be there. And it should be a decent life. So whatever profession we need to get into in order to have a decent life, go ahead. And business also. But to accumulate just so you're wealthy, that is not encouraged. So if a person wants to make a lot of money and is a devotee, then they should have a Krishna conscious project in mind that they want to spend the money on. Then you can begin to look at that. And even that, the prayer should be that, yes, this project, it will be wonderful to be involved in it. It costs money. Sometimes fundraising is okay, but we also can all use our own understanding of business or whatever talent that Krishna has given us to raise the required money for it. But it is for a particular reason, involved in Krishna conscious service. Then we raise money for that. Now, what has been said is those who have accumulated wealth or even born into wealth, that situation is there for some people also, that what they've been given to them, that is just sitting there, half of it should be used in Krishna conscious projects. There's always room. We are only 2 million devotees, and there's 7,500 million human beings on this earth. We're just 2 million. There is so much work to be done to spread Krishna consciousness. And so when we use that, Srila Rupa Goswami says half of it. Half of it should live on or give to relatives. A quarter of it to relatives, quarter of it saved. And it's saved, and he was specific, for emergencies. Half of it, use it for Krishna consciousness projects. So if there's some things, and it's kind of always, and it's a wonderful society, Srila Prabhupada's body. It has work that needs to be done. It is also an interesting society in that there are many, many conditioned souls that come to the society than pure devotees. Very few pure devotees, a whole lot of conditioned souls with their lower nature coming in. So therefore, sometimes we will see that there's this situation, there's that situation, and then on top of that, Maya is also tempting. So one situation after another comes. But we learn from it and we help to improve. So situations will come affecting the society, but as long as we take the instructions of Guru seriously, nobody can bring this society down. In fact, one thing after another, if it happens, in the end, it's going to become stronger, as Bhakti Churi Swami says. ISKCON will only become stronger. It's owned by Lord Chaitanya. We're doing Lord Chaitanya's bidding, chanting Hare Krishna. That's what Lord Chaitanya asked us to do. And that's what Hare Krishnas do. It was actually owned by the biggest manager of ISKCON, is Srila Prabhupada. But the owner is Lord Chaitanya himself, God himself. Who can beat God? He killed all the enemies. So nobody can defeat the Lord. Nobody's at the Lord's level. So ISKCON belongs to the Lord. And therefore, it's always going to be safe. So if you want to do something to help ISKCON to progress, then yeah, raise money for that purpose. Either in your own efforts, your own talents, but keep a quarter of what you've raised for emergencies and a quarter of your family members. That's what Rupa Goswami said. That's our model of economic development, according to Srila Rupa Goswami, who himself is a disciple of Lord Chaitanya. Thank you for asking the question. Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments? If not, then thank you very much. We actually passed the hour now, so thank you very much. This is the weekend, so have a wonderful Krishna conscious weekend. Hare Krishna. And I also promised the devotees in Philadelphia that I'll talk about the Rath Yatra. We're having Rath Yatra tomorrow. From what I understand, it would be a good idea to have a raincoat or an umbrella with you because there is the chance of some rain, not the whole day, but some rain. That never has stopped Rath Yatra from occurring. My Guru Maharaj told me about a big downpour of rain in Paris, and they're having Rath Yatra there, and it was soaking wet. The devotees were soaking wet. The deities were covered nicely on top with the canopy, so the deities never got wet. Talking about the Subhadra, but the devotees were wet, and they were just jumping and dancing in the rain. In the rain, where others were saying, how in the world are these people just happy getting so wet in the rain like that? But the holy name is that powerful. So yeah, there is Rath Yatra in the early afternoon to the early evening in Philadelphia tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Any final questions? Okay, so we'll stop here. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripa sindhibhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vaishnav Thakur ki jai. Gaur Premalande Hari 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 Gaur. Have a nice Krishna conscious weekend. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Gaur Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.